Welcome back, everybody, to a special edition. We're going to kind of touch base on WWDC and all the cool stuff and scary stuff that has come out. I think it would be a little formulatic this time and just kind of go through each reveal. So I guess let's start with iOS. What are some of your things that you thought were cool or stupid or, what are your thoughts?
So first off, the customization of the home screen I thought was interesting. Like how now you can kind of make apps all dark mode, which I get why you do that. Like it's gimmicky, but I do like it because like it kind of brings like a fluidity to your home screen. Speaking of fluidity, now you can change the colors of your app. So you can make them like all generic, it seems like, and then make them all the same colors. So it kind of, you can make your home screen kind of match like your background photo and stuff like that. So again, gimmicky, but I get why you do it. Like, especially for a person like me, I'm very OCD. So I'll definitely probably have all my stuff color coded because like my wife gets on to me because she'll go on my phone and I'll tell her to open an app for me. And I'll tell her like, hey, everything's in alphabetical order. All apps are alphabetical. And then even the apps within the folder are alphabetical. And she's just like, you're neurotic. And I'm like, no, it makes it where I can easily find an app. I know exactly where it is. So this will probably just add to my other layer of OCD. The one thing that I thought was really stupid, and I feel like this is going to cause so much just shady shit, is how you can lock apps and hide apps. I'm like, I don't get the benefit of it. I'm sure somebody will tell me the benefit and maybe I'll understand it. But as it is right now, I don't understand the benefit at all of like locking an app and hiding an app. Like, I just feel like you're creating reasons for people to not trust each other who are in relationships, like your significant other. Like, you already have people that are already insecure. I just feel like you're taking that insecurity to the next level. It's like somebody, they see the app and it could be like a bad app or something. And they go to open it and it's just like, oh yeah, you can't open this app. You have to have a face or an ID or a fingerprint or a pin code, passcode to open it. And it's like, and you already know people are going to be locking out their Facebook, their Instagrams, their Snapchats, their Twitter. So you can't see their DMs and shit and whatever. Apple, you're the masterminds. I don't get it. It's not for me. And my wife actually has her face set up in my phone, so it doesn't matter. She can unlock anything in my phone.
That's funny. Yep.
That's all I got for iOS.
Fair enough. As far as like the home screen, yeah, it's a nice feature, but like, I don't know how about you, but like when I was on Android, let's just go back to Fallout times. Like I had my whole phone look like a Pip-Boy. You know what I mean? Like that was, God, I can't remember, 7 years ago. So like, yeah, I know like Apple is behind on certain things, but like I haven't missed it either. You know what I mean? Because I remember the time like I customized all my apps to where they didn't have any labels. They were all like icons, like a tank or a zebra, and then I didn't know what anything was. I forgot. I'm like, this is just too much work. I have other shit to do, and that's kind of what I've enjoyed getting older with the Apple. An iPhone. It's just, it works. I don't have to give a shit about any of that stuff. So it's kind of cool to have. I do think the wallpaper matching the icons is really cool. Just a little touch kind of brings me back to that matching style. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, with the cheater feature.
Nice name.
I'm with you. I think, yeah, that's probably going to cause more problems than not. So, I mean, I think the example they used is like Craig had a hair app where you can try on different hairstyles. I'm like, no one's going to give a shit if you have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do see it where like, certain people that are quite out of the closet, they have Grindr or whatever they're using that they don't feel comfortable with their family or friends having. I'm like, I could see that, okay, that's your business. You know what I mean? But yeah, mostly I can see it being maybe that 10% and then 90% is, oh, cool, I could hide the shady shit, like you said. Then real quick, I think a customized control center, that's kind of cool.
I meant to touch on that. Yeah, that was really cool.
because I like that feature. I'd be able to like just get to my quick hits and then really kind of expand with widgets and stuff in there. So that's a welcome piece. I said there wasn't quite a lot.
I wish they would have expanded a little bit how you can customize the control center and you have a little bit of control center on your lock screen. Like I like how you can change those two buttons, but you can still only have two. I would have liked it if you could have expanded just a little bit if you wanted to like 4 or like 3 or something. Like I think no more than 4.
Yeah.
But like I do like now that we can change those buttons because right now I think it's what mine is my camera and I can't remember the other icon, but one's the camera. And they're making it where you can change those. But I would like to have seen just a little bit of expansion there where it's like, oh, you want to add another one or you want to add 4, like you want to have 4 total. Because there are things that I would like to be able to access where I don't need to unlock my phone. And like my camera isn't one of them because I don't take a lot of pictures with my iPhone, unfortunately.
Yeah, and just a quick hidden feature, but I think a lot of people forget about. We still have the Apple logo on the back. That's an optional accessibility feature. I think a lot of people forget about. So you do have that button as well. Yeah, other than that, I think some of the stuff we'll talk about that kind of crosses over to Mac OS. But overall, yeah, pretty chill. I did think there was one thing cool with AirPods to where you can kind of nod.
That's what I was going to touch on with the audio, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, that was cool. I'm like, I kind of like those features. It makes me want, well, we'll probably get into a lot of stuff that kind of makes me want to wear my AirPods all day. If I could do all this automation stuff, but we'll tap into that. But yeah, I think those are the big highlights that I found interesting or weird for iOS.
Yeah, I was going to tap on the audio next, and I the idea of like being able to shake, like nod and shake your head is interesting, but it's just like I can't help but like wonder like how dumb do I look in public? Like if I get a phone call, I'm like, and it's to answer it. But I mean, granted, people, they don't know what you're doing. You could just be, doing mannerisms that like, obviously when you talk on the phone, you tend to act out what you're talking about. You could be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Or nah, I don't like that, bro. And you're on the phone. So you could interpret it that way. So I get why they're doing it because it's kind of a natural gesture thing. It's going to look a little weird. Just be like, you get a phone call and you want to answer and you're just like, you're giving a subtle nod. You're like, but then again, it goes to show you the tech that they put in those things where they can tell your head movements. Like, I mean, they already could do that with their spatial audio and their noise cancellation, but it's interesting that they're able to now mimic like, oh, they're shaking their head yes, or they're shaking their head no. Like, yeah.
I wonder what kind of combination they're going to add because they added the gestures for the watch. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be walking around like friggin' Tourette's,
or headbanging.
Like, what's this dude doing? Clicking around.
Right.
But yeah, let's slide right into audio then, since that kind of tapers over. What else did you think was interesting on the audio front?
The audio I didn't really pay much attention to outside of the head nodding because I only really use my iPods just for listening and for talking, like when I have meetings and stuff. I do like that, like on the newer style, like, so I got the AirPod Pro Gen 2s. Okay. And I like how they finally put in like the volume up and stuff like that. So I do wonder as the AirPods develop more, if we're going to get more, like you said, gesture features with it, being that they're kind of increasing the touch and now you have the ability to incorporate movement. The other thing I thought was really interesting is that they're going to be introducing spatial audio to like video games and stuff while you're going. And that's going to be weird to be like, but I think I think they're trying to make it a more immersive experience when you're gaming on any device, basically your iPhone, your MacBook, your iPad, stuff like that. But they're trying to capture that immersive experience where it's just like, say you're playing a game, say you're playing like The Last of Us and you're walking and you hear like a crunch behind you, but it happens to come out of like one ear real quiet. It's going to make you like look over your shoulder because of the spatial awareness. So I think that's going to be like, to me, that's another really unique feature they're bringing to audio. But that was kind of the only 2 points that really stood out for me for audio. What about you?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm happy about that I didn't really know until I got my new job, last year, and I was forced to use a Windows machine. I'm hybrid, so I don't use my headset even at work. So I just use my AirPods. I got to configure it, and it's like I didn't realize that they can hear absolutely everything. And I have some loud coworkers, so when I'm in a meeting, everybody can hear everything around me. So
Gotcha.
if that's dogs barking or anything like that, I had no, because me, I'm in noise canceling. I had the Gen 1 Pros. And so, to me, I'm like, I'm quiet, I'm happy, but I didn't realize all that shit bled through. So the fact that they're adding voice isolation
Mm-hmm.
is really a cool feature, because now that fixes that problem. And now I don't have to worry about it. I can just pop my AirPods in and then do those meetings and not have to worry about that, or with like customers, because I talk to customers. Yeah, outside of that, I didn't really see anything else, but those features were about it.
I want to jump back to iOS super quick.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the iOS now doing the ability to record conversations? And the reason I ask this is because, as you know, in some states, there are two-party consents to record your conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And like right now with Zoom, if you do a recording with Zoom, Zoom tells everybody on the Zoom this audio or this Zoom is being recorded, and you get even a little stamp that lets you know it's being recorded. Like, do you expect Apple to do some type of announcement like that to people? And then do you think it's going to transition to Android users who are being called from an iPhone user? Or if it's only going to be iPhone to iPhone?
That is a good question. So I think that it does prompt you. So it's just stay in the Apple ecosystem. I do think it tells the other person. I think they might have mentioned that it does actually prompt to say, hey, this is being recorded on the opposite side. Because I think
Okay.
if I was Apple, I would just do a blanket, it's consent. You know what I mean? Or you at least have to know, because we have like same thing with doorbells, I think, in different states, you have to post that you're recording. So I think Apple, from what I heard, that is the case. I'd have to like double check that. So I only watched the keynote once. And as far as to an Android user, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not that smart with programming and stuff, so I'd imagine that would work. Apple wouldn't go in kind of half-assed on a lawsuit or anything, or have to deal with that. So I think whatever they did or programmed to do, it will prompt. How that works, I have no idea. Android it's good. It's good, little techie here. Android is Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Now
The
Mac
flavor
OS,
of it anyway.
Unix. So I mean, what is iOS?
I mean, Linux and Unix kind of go hand in hand.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not that far off. So I don't think it'd be too hard. It's not like you're talking to Windows to Mac. That's a little different. You know what I mean? So it might not be as difficult as we're thinking, just because they are kind of core directories the same, So yeah, I'm assuming that it's a blanket across the board. If they have the ability to do that, it will prompt that person.
I guess I was more curious because we see how, if you text an Android user, it's green bubble. And it's kind of like Apple's kind of like jab at somebody to be like, you're not as good as us because you don't have the blue bubble. And obviously they have a legal battle going on with that right now in Europe, or actually not in Europe, here in the States, from the Justice Department. And I think that eventually we're going to see that go away. So then that's why I'm wondering if they know, instead of us trying to catch another lawsuit, we're just going to make it where it works across the board. Whoever you're calling, doesn't matter if it's iPhone, Android, landline, whatever, just to be safe.
My personal thoughts on that, I think Apple and their ecosystem, Apple to Apple, just the way all their tech works, I like the idea of knowing if you're an Apple user. We're like, okay, you're blue, and if I want to airdrop you something, I can. It's kind of a precursor to say, if I wanted to do something that's within the boundaries of this ecosystem, I can. Whether that's some of the new features we'll get into with, say, the texting, where you can do send later, or the strikeouts, or some of those features, the person on the other end will receive it as you intend. So if you get all blue or green bubbles, it could be misconstrued by how you format it. And if it doesn't translate over, you might be like, why is this not coming through? So I like the green and blue, just the difference, but I do kind of half agree with you that it's, it's like, hey, we're all Apple here. But just a thought.
Cool. Moving on. Let's jump into like tvOS, iPadOS, watchOS.
Okay.
Were anything of those that really stood out to you? Like for me, nothing really stood out to me personally. But what about you? Like, was there anything that really kind of grabbed your eye with those three?
Uh, tvOS, nothing really.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. My tvOS, it works. WatchOS, one cool thing. There wasn't a whole lot out there, but I do like how they're taking. They've always, to me, WatchOS is phenomenal as far as like all the tech that they put into it and how they keep going. And they have this new thing called Insights app where they actually
Right.
can tell all the shit, and they do trends based off your sleeping. And I'm sure other apps do that, but it's nice to have that now.
Mhm.
It seems like they just keep working overtime to build out these health apps and these things should know. Instead of just being like, hey, you have a high heart rate. Now it could be like, hey, we've noticed a trend over the last 6 weeks that you are kind of hitting this. And it's like even more information like, oh shit, maybe I should, it's not necessarily danger zone.
Right.
But it's like, this helps you stop from getting into danger zone. So I think that's pretty cool. iPad OS, it's going to kind of tag into the AI portion of this conversation. At first, I kind of laughed because they're like, hey, we're bringing calculator. I'm like, that should have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And then like, there's even a laugh track like, yay, or something. They're like, yay. I'm like, oh my God, Apple's like they're trolling themselves. Then they went into some of the AI features that I'll save because I think they're going to go across the whole board. But okay, let's just say their calculator app now has part of this AI, but without getting into it, basically, I thought it was really cool, right? They could take handwritten notes and then you can go into formulas and you can write these things, and then it's like a smart calculator that can detect changes and just do formulas and graphs off the fly. So it went from like, oh, Apple, you're being really stupid about a calculator, to like, holy shit. This thing is crazy. Blew my mind. My wife's like, what? She was like working and stopped. It was like, that's nuts. So, but yeah, nothing really there that's not the same as really iOS outside
Right.
of we get a calculator app. So
All my sentiments the same with you between all those three flavors. I kind of use them. I do like how the Apple Watch is starting to do. They're going to start doing like, what was it called? It wasn't health trends. It was like training, where it's like basically it's going to monitor the workouts you're doing and it's going to start altering those workouts to help you bring up your intensity. Like if it sees you trending down, it's going to be like, hey, we noticed that these workouts you're not trending as high as you were. Let's up the intensity or let's change it up. Or if they see you like kind of maintaining, they're going to be like, hey, do you want to stay here? Do you want to like, it's supposed to actively monitor your workouts and your health journey and it's supposed to like help you elevate it however you want.
that's
So
cool.
I thought that was interesting. Like obviously they're really leaning into the health aspect of the Apple Watch, but I think is their strong point with that. Because I mean, I use my I do my activities, I close my rings every day. I keep all track of all my workouts through it. Like I look at my heart rate, so I do use a lot of the health features of the watch. So I think they're really leaning into that. Like they understand, hey, this is kind of our bread and butter with the watch. Let's really ramp this up. And then obviously introducing the AI aspect is really going to change that too. With that, I want to flip to Mac OS, which for me was a big one because of what I do for a living in the IT space. Like Mac OS is kind of my bread and butter. And the biggest thing for me with Mac OS, I was really disappointed in the name. We were taking bets at work for the name, and my bet was it was going to be Mac OS Everest, and they went with Sequoia, so they went completely away from mountains and went to trees. So I was like, "Damn you!" But whatever, I'll take it. Sequoia it is. The biggest thing for me with Mac OS was obviously the changes to Safari. They're introducing a lot of crazy stuff with Safari. So much that I can't even pinpoint what they were introducing. It was just all over the place, but a lot of changes with Safari, a lot of changes with maps that I think kind of ties into the iOS, especially with like now they're doing trails and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. Oh, before we finish, flip back over to iOS. One really cool feature, satellite messaging. I thought that is really, really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Because they already introduced satellite calling with the watch and the phone, to where if you don't have a signal, you can still at least call emergency services. But now I think, say you're in a situation where you can't talk, say God forbid you're kidnapped or something, but you still have your phone, and you go to some rural place that you don't have service, you can send an SMS to like 911 or just a family member and be like, hey, I'm trapped here, and hopefully you might know where you are so you can send location. So I just thought that was a really cool feature, and I think we'll see a lot of other companies adopt that. So sorry, users, we keep going back. So our listeners, we keep going back. So, but back to Mac OS. I think one of the most interesting features of Mac OS that they're introducing, which I think is like the ultimate like lazy thing that we could do for a user, is iPhone mirroring. Like if you don't want to pull your iPhone out of your pocket, you can now literally mirror it on your MacBook and actually interact with it. Like, they showcase how you can order, like they were ordering like a coffee from their favorite. I was just like, come on, like this is where we are. This is where we are. And like, I do like the fact, and I think Apple already had this with their mirroring software, is that when you're mirroring your iPhone, your apps, like your iPhone stays locked. Mm-hmm. Like it's not unlocking it. And it's not like where if you TeamViewer or you RDP, or not RDP, but VNC into a device where you're literally seeing the screen that's there. You're not sharing the screen, or you're sharing the screen. You're not remoting into it. This is almost like you're remoting into your iPhone and it's projecting the iPhone to you. And I thought it's also crazy that notifications that you normally wouldn't see on the Mac from the iPhone will now be embedded into the Mac. So you can get right now we get SMS, email, stuff like that between the two, but now you can get apps that were specifically on iOS. They'll send a notification out to your MacBook. So, I mean, I already turn off a ton of notifications because they notify you about every fucking thing.
Yeah.
But I thought the screen mirroring to me was like, outside of the stuff we're going to talk about at the end, the screen mirroring was like one of the biggest things for the iPhone. I was just like, come on. Like, how lazy are we that we don't want to take our phone out of our pocket? Like, come on.
So this is one of my favorite parts of this podcast with you, is where I have a different opinion. Because a lot of times you and I you're pretty much the same. We're very on that same wavelength. It's not so much different opinion. It's I have a purpose for it. So I do a lot of social stuff with families, and I do a lot of editing and Final Cut, and then I have to transfer, say, stuff to TikTok, or I have to so I do all these edits, and then I have to airdrop it back and forth so I can upload it to the apps. I'm sure there's a web page version, but if you've ever opened up TikTok or Instagram on a web page, it's not meant for it.
Yeah, it's not meant for
it's shit experience.
OS. It's not meant for the Mac OS. It's meant for app usage.
Yeah. So if I could, okay, I got done filming all my Lego stuff, right? I did a bunch of a whole video, and some of those videos, I do 50 videos for a building or something. And I have to edit all that. So I can go to my Mac, go to my workstation, and mirror it and just pull files and then edit and then just bring them back and then open them up and do everything from my MacBook. And that's kind of cool as a creator though too. It's if you're doing film editing or movies or a little music video, it's you can just plug it in, kind of like you'd have to do with your hard drives, and then but now I could do it all in one box. So I feel that's actually gonna be a really cool feature for me, to not have to just sit there and go back and forth, airdrop shit back, and then render, airdrop it back. Is it going to save me a whole lot of time? I don't know, but I still think, and for that one specific thing, I think it's going to be kind of cool that I don't have to if I can do it all in one. But to me, it's also, I feel like there's this thing with Apple, and I thought it was mostly iPad and Mac, but I really still feel like they want one operating system for everything. And I know I've kind of talked about it before, but I feel like that's just another step. We had continuity, and now we have the mirroring. I just feel like they keep adding features to where they're just in some form going to be able to have very, very similar
Apple OS.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like that's what they want. So to me, that's kind of my thoughts on those two things.
To touch on your point about them kind of leaning towards one OS, if you really think about it, when Mac OS went to, it was either Big Sur or Ventura, one of the two, they introduce a layout of the system settings and what you would see on an iPhone and an iPad. And I was really interested. That was That was kind of a hard transition for us at my office because all of our users were so used to the old interface.
Mm-hmm.
But now, we've gotten so used to it that, it makes it easier where when you're trying to describe something on an iPhone, an iPad, or a Mac OS, that's at least in the system settings, everything's the same. So it's kind of like a 1-to-1 ratio. So I kind of get what you're saying. And I definitely think there's a chance that they may get to that point where they just have one OS for everything. And it's just, they call it Apple OS or something crazy like that. So the other thing that I'll kind of touch on with the Mac OS, you were talking about the phone mirroring and how you can move files back and forth. I did like how they're kind of making the photo editor a little stronger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, Android already had this where you can remove items and stuff like that. But they're finally introducing it to Apple, and you're going to be able to use it across all your platforms, iPhone, iPad, MacBook. But I thought that was finally they got that kind of feature, because obviously now you don't have to have somebody Photoshop some shit out for you. You'll be able to do it right there on the fly, which would be nice.
They have a new password standalone app. Now, for me, I do everything in Keychain or passwords already. So I already use passwords and I store everything in there. So like, I really didn't understand. They didn't tell me anything that was already not in there. So maybe I missed how unique a password app is when to me, it already exists. Because you could share. I can share passwords with people. I can do all the things. To me, it's just feel like they're trying to just market it more of a LastPass or something.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it, basically. Like one password, LastPass, like something like that, to where a user can feel like they're using a standalone app maybe, and not something that's built.
Correct. Because it sits there behind the scenes, but I think, it's more what it already exists, but it's foreground. It sits in their browser, which I don't think it needs to, but yeah. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that, because to me, it seemed like the exact same thing I use.
I already use passwords. I love the fact that the ecosystem just takes my password across systems. And I don't have to change anything, and it's just there. Even when I bring a new device in, as long as I sign into my iCloud, all my data is there. So I just kind of glanced over that. I was like, to each their own. I already use passwords, so I'm good.
Yeah, just didn't get it.
Right.
Confused.
So the two big things that we need to touch on that they introduced. I want to start with the smaller one that I think is a little scarier. Siri. We all know Siri is basically the built-in assistant for Apple. They've had Siri, since the invention of the iPhone, I think. Maybe like iPhone 3 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe 4, 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. So it's been around for a very long time. And we all understand what Siri does. And even Google came out with their version of it, just, hey, Google. So with AI being what it is now, and how AI is kind of starting to integrate into everything, and it's very prevalent in the tech world, they decided to not tie, because technically they can work, one can work without the other, but they decided to incorporate Chat GPT into Siri. Now, it's not an all or nothing thing. For those of you that didn't watch WWDC, what it can do is you can ask Siri something, and if Siri thinks that what you're asking is not so much too complex, but maybe you want a very specific type of answer, Siri will suggest, hey, would you want to use Chat GPT for this specific request? And it will give you the option to use Chat GPT. And at that point, it goes out to OpenAI, and then basically now you're asking Chat GPT for what you were asking Siri. I've always felt Siri was a really good tool. I use it quite a bit. I use it more than I thought I ever would. Mainly, it's like if my hands are busy and I need to text my wife or call somebody and I have my AirPods in, like, it's great for that. I love how she can clearly understand what I'm trying to say, clearly dictate what I'm reading to her, so on and so forth. I get worried about tying into Chat GPT because, A, there's no regulations with AI right now. It's kind of a wild, wild west with it. You don't really know where your data goes. You don't really know how your data is being used. Say you're in a corporate environment, and say you're working on like an email, and you're like, hey, Siri, I need to do something with this email. Like, I want you to read this email back to me and see what I need to change. And Siri could be like, yeah, I could do that. Or I could have you send this email, have you send the subject of the email to ChatGPT and see what they say. And what if you have sensitive data? And then, now, granted, I'm not saying you would do this. This is just me. I go to the extreme on things when I think of these scenarios. I go to like the deep end. But I'm just like, what happens if that has sensitive data and now you send it to Chat GPT? We don't know where that data is going. We don't know how that data is stored per se. And we don't even know if we can get that data back. So I was very surprised when I heard that they're going to be like incorporating Chat GPT into Siri. And I do wonder, with me being in the enterprise world, are you going to give admins like me and you the ability to still keep Siri around, but to block the features of ChatGPT? Floor is yours.
So that's my original, my first question. Can we just turn that off? Is that a jam feature? Is that an MDM feature to where we say no? Is it a personal feature to say, because I don't want to see ChatGPT pop up every time. To me, that better be a thing that's just optional from system preferences.
Right.
I will not give Apple the benefit of the doubt because they are very privacy centric, which we're going to
super privacy centric,
which we're going to tap into something else next on that too, which concerns me surprisingly. Without getting too technical, so at least on the Mac OS side, like they've went to kind of a containerized system, and also they have the system integrity protection. They have those things.
God, I hate SIP sometimes.
Yeah, I turn it off a lot for different things, but I mean, their whole business model is privacy and data. We can't see it. I think having the option to go to Chat GPT is 100% user gamble. And it's not on Apple because it's a choice. They'll never, and I think that's their loophole. And I still think the way they build their systems, nothing system-wide will ever be in danger. But I don't know about you. Like, to me, like, I don't even download apps. When I go to look at an app, I'm like, that looks like a cool tool. And then I say, you want access to all this shit? No, I won't download an app. I'm like, yeah, that could save me some time. That'd be a really cool thing to have. But if you're listing 10 things you need access to, which I don't think you do, I will not download that app. I won't use it. So that's kind of where I'm at, is like, I'm even protective of myself. So again, that's a personal choice. That's a person saying, I accept these risks. I will allow this app to look at my contacts, my photos, my system, my IP, and like, no. So yeah, I think it could be another conversation to see, like, when we have more data, what's actually going there and what it could actually be released. But I think for right now, everything is protected unless you hit that button for what's in that container, that little bubble that you are sending. Because I mean, what could you actually be sending? You're sending a question, right?
In theory, yeah.
I mean, you're not like, hey, take this photo. I mean, that gets into other access. We're like, hey, how do you do this script? You know, yeah, I don't know how to do that. You want to talk to ChatGPT? Yeah, sure. Tell me how to write a script to install these things. You know, that, to me, that's harmless because I've used ChatGPT, Bard, and Copilot. You know, just testing. So, you know, that's to me harmless. But yeah, we'd have to see more data, what it's capable of, and what you can send before I think we can get like full answers. But it is kind of frightening. It is scary. The whole concept of AI is scary.
It's gonna be unique. That's for sure. It's gonna be different. And it's just, again, I was very surprised that they're just like, we're marrying our intelligence with ChatGPT. And I get it, because ChatGPT is stronger than Siri. Because Siri really just goes out to the internet and like Google searches or something, basically. And like ChatGPT is doing, it's like Google, if Google took speed and crack and mixed it together, and it's just like, hey, what's up? Well,
theory time, because it just crossed my mind. It could be in very Apple form to just buy it.
Well, I just found out. I didn't know this. Talking to a gentleman at work, he's really big into like tech news. Mm-hmm. Microsoft owns ChatGPT now. They bought OpenAI. I did not know that, and they spent a pretty large amount of money on it. Now, obviously, this is going off word of mouth from my coworker, but again, he kind of lives and breathes in the tech world. Mm-hmm. He's usually pretty spot on with his news, but obviously, if we spoke out of turn, please correct us. Let us know that that's not the case. But he told me that Microsoft actually owns OpenAI. They bought OpenAI and ChatGPT. So that was another reason why I was like, huh. But I understand why Apple's using it, because again, how robust Chat GPT is, and they've been out longer. Speaking of AI, I want to talk about the big elephant in the room. If you're
Yes.
Apple announced their own AI called Apple Intelligence. So when I first heard it, I thought this was the replacement for Siri when I first heard it, because at the time they hadn't announced Siri yet. They just said, hey, we're introducing Apple AI. Come to find out, Apple AI actually lives only in the Apple ecosystem. It never goes out beyond Apple's touch, which I thought was quite unique. So the way I interpreted Apple Intelligence was to make your day-to-day life on your Apple devices better. But that's where it stops. Once you go past the Apple device, Apple Intelligence is just like, this is all on Siri and Chat GPT at that point. But if you're trying to do something within this ecosystem, I can do whatever you need. And they showcase some pretty cool things, how it can create its own emojis, create its own images, how you can ask it to check an email for you and then see how that email looks and see what needs to be altered. So it's kind of like having your own personal Chat GPT. I'm actually less scared about Apple Intelligence than I am about Siri with Chat GPT. The only thing I'm scared about with Apple Intelligence is, will I be allowed to access the data that Apple Intelligence is gathering from me? Will I have visibility of that data? Because you're telling me that it's going to be stored within an Apple resource, like some type of iCloud system. Will I have access to that iCloud system? Or is that something that you all just have and you're like, you don't get access to it, but just know your data is safe? Because we are trusting you with our data. So that's like my only gripe with Apple Intelligence, but I'm actually really excited to play around with it and see how powerful it is, because basically it's their form of Copilot. So I'm just really interested to kind of see how it's going to work in an enterprise environment when we start beta testing it, because I just think it could be very powerful, but you have to be smart. Like what Uncle Bitch said, with great power comes great responsibility. That's the way I feel about Apple Intelligence.
That was my big fear. It was, this is really cool. And they're like, oh, and I kind of just freaked out. So I didn't quite listen in the moment. It was like, oh, but then we have AI in the cloud. I'm like, no, your data is protected. I'm like, I know my shit's in the cloud, but I still don't trust it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but then we kind of go what I said earlier about containerizing your OS and your data, and then, having those protections for your privacy. Yeah. I think on system, super cool. Like, yeah, like help me fix this resume, because I've used these AI tools, I've had, but if I can use something in that ecosystem where I can be like, hey, summarize the email, and your kids grow up and they do homework assignments, like, hey, make this art, make a graph, and it's going to make people lazier, but also if we're going to get very dependent on AI, so like that's going to be a problem raising kids in the world, but I do think it's really cool, and I will use the shit out of it, and I will test it in so many ways. Because, like, if I already don't have enough time as it is in the day. So, like, if I can, hey, tell me this, does this sound good? And I was an early adopter to like the Google Homes and the stuff like that. So, like, it's stuff like I've been playing around with for a long time. Like trying to have these conversations. Hey, do this thing for me. Let me program you to do all these things. And that's the kind of world. I want to live in that like Minority Report world, without being stupid. I think that's where we're going. A lot of cool tools, and I think are going to be I was really impressed. And that kind of goes back to the iPad thing I said earlier with the math, they call it like smart scripts and math notes. That's where it was with the calculator math notes. And yeah, it's just like seeing that my jaw drop. You're in notes and you're just writing a formula, and then you can just change the variables and it picks it. And then like, hey, make a graph, and then the AI does those things. Like, that's phenomenal. Like, you can finish your homework, not have to build a stupid graph, but understand the graph and then go play video games the rest of the night, So I'm jealous of the youth having this, but what can I do in our workplace? Because we're both in tech. Yeah. How can I put that to work? But I think that's where it kind of got confused for me too, is like, I was with you. I thought this is okay. We're going to replace Siri finally. Cause I always felt like Google was better when it came to
It is because they have the backing of Google. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in that mixed world of, okay, I have all this Apple stuff, but all my homes and stuff are Google.
Same.
And then they introduced the Siri thing. I'm like, well, how does that integrate? Am I still talking to Siri to summarize? So Siri's still doing
like it's different from what I saw. Like when you're asking Siri, Siri is like very specific to Siri, and then when you're using Apple Intelligence, that's its own brainchild.
Okay, yeah, that's where I feel like there was a disconnect. So I'm glad you had the same impression, because that's where I was left. I'm like, there's too much data here. There's too much cool shit coming out. So I do think it'll be really cool, because again, Apple doesn't really release anything until they know it works. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't, the wizards there will fix it in like 2 hours.
We were talking about it at work, and a thing that my boss mentioned that I didn't think about, but I kind of sat and marinated with it. Government is very heavily Apple involved now because of the data security. I don't think that they can sit here and put out an AI product without the government having a say-so in it, because of how heavily the government utilizes their ecosystem. So that kind of appeased a little of my fears, being that, okay, they're going to have something in place that's really going to protect our data. We don't know what it is, but they're going to have something, because the government has a lot of contracts with Apple, especially when it comes to their devices. And they can't just be like, we're going all in on AI and not kind of work hand in hand with government entities. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the Apple Intelligence, the thing that they showcased that I thought was, it literally made my jaw drop, and I was just like, holy shit, was how they show the power of Apple Intelligence kind of reading a text message, pulling out certain information out of that text message. It was about like a friend. It was something like, I think, a friend asking, can he go to like a baseball game or something? And AI saw the baseball, saw the date, knew that, oh, your daughter has this on this date. We need to check the calendar to make. And I was just like, what just happened? Like, and it literally, like, I hadn't seen anything like that with AI. I knew AI was capable of crap like that, but to see it, like, because I don't play around with it like that, I was just like, that's terrifying and beautiful all at the same time. Like, that was amazing. And how now you can tell AI to be like, you can tell your device, like, hey, save this person's contact for me, and it'll create everything for you without you having to do a single thing. And then the other side of that, think about with Siri now, we can now type to Siri. It's just, they are, I'm like you, they are going all in on this kind of like hands-off approach with everything. And I'm like, we're not going to have to do anything on our phones anymore. Like, it's just, we're just going to have to take it out and talk to it, and it's going to do everything for us. Or at the point where we just think it and it happened.
Well, that's what I was saying, like, earlier, without giving too much away. Not that anybody's already seen it, but I just feel like my AirPods will be in 24/7. You know what I mean? Because it's like, how many things can I get done doing a load of dishes or mowing my yard? I'm like, okay, read my emails to me. Okay, respond. And I'm sitting there mowing my yard, and I can get all this shit done while I'm doing the shit work that you have to do in like the real world. So that is amazing if it works. So yeah, the potential is phenomenal. And again, it's Apple. They've been working towards this a long time. They have the silicone, they have the power to make this shit happen. So they're going to build off of this. In 4 years, it's going to be crazy, dude. This is where we're at. We're in the future time of the shit we saw, minus spaceships. I mean, we are flying to space, but not as cool. You know what I mean? But like that Minority Report type shit is here.
Right. Where we're just going to be gesturing now to do everything. You won't even have a phone anymore. I'm excited and scared for the future. I'm excited because we're going into times that, like you said, you see in movies. You don't see this in real life. But the power that this can wield, it's just, man, I just hope it is used responsibly, because shit can go left real quick. It's one of those things where I encourage everybody, even if you're not super techie, even if you're not on the level of tech nerdiness that me and Joe are on, where we have to live in this space, even if you're just like a casual user, I encourage you to just take a little bit to read up on AI just to see what it's about. Like, see what the tools do. Like, I don't I don't think we need to spread mass fear about AI. It's okay to be afraid of it, but most of the time you're afraid of something, you try to learn either why you're afraid so you can ease your fears or to confirm your fears. So I think just take the time to do a little bit of self-education about artificial intelligence because it's coming. There is no when, it is now. And basically it's like, where does it go? And I just think the more you educate yourself about it, the better understanding you'll have about it. And again, it might appease your fears. It might sustain your fears. I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least learn about it. Again, just casual reading. Like, you don't have to get in depth and start learning all the technical aspects of it and how it fucking uses API and coding and all that shit to actually work. Like, it's more just a general understanding. Like, this is what AI, this is what we currently use for it. This is the potential that it could be. And you just go from there. The biggest fear with AI is self-learning. AI is designed to teach itself, more or less. When does it stop learning? And can it stop learning? That's the fear. That's the unknown. It's like, if we want to get crazy with it, you look at Terminator 2 as kind of the blueprint for artificial intelligence. Like, the whole point of that movie was that Skynet became self-aware and realized that basically the human race was bad and destroying themselves and the planet and would destroy the robots eventually in Skynet. So it's proactive and it started a war. I don't know if AI will ever get that crazy, but I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you that I don't think about that shit, because I do. Because again, AI is a learning tool. It's machine learning. It evolves. That means it'll get smarter, faster, better, more efficient. And obviously, AI can think way quicker than a human. I'm not saying it thinks more rationally than a human, but it can process things way faster than a human. So, not trying to scare you, just educate yourself on AI.
Let's stoke some fears. It's coming for your jobs.
No. It will put out some of like the tier 1, tier 2 IT support jobs and stuff like that. And like, it might even put out like receptionist jobs and stuff like that. Like how we might be able to just handle moving calls around, moving emails around, assistants, stuff like that.
Fun fact that you brought that up. I just randomly, a customer needed something. So I was running around town, saw where they were at, went there, and I had to go meet some guy. And I went to the front desk and there was just a machine. And it was like, I talked to it. It's like, hi, blah, blah, blah. I had a person on there. Who are you trying to reach? Blah, blah, blah. This is our catalog. I'm like, and it's a type of business. I don't want to give anything away, but I did not expect that. I'm like, why is this here?
Was it like a computer system, or was it like a robot?
It was a screw. It wasn't like Five Nights at Freddy's or anything. It was like, it was just a computer screen, but it had like a person talking to me. So I had to talk to it.
Was it a real person, or was it an AI generated image?
It was a person acting, but you still had responses. So
gotcha. So it was like a pre-recorded, but it was like had
talk to it.
Got you. Yeah. So it could interact with you, but it was kind of like, okay, got you.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. I was like, I don't want to do this. Where's the phone? You know. And so I was like, well, this is the person I'm trying to reach. Like, oh, okay, blah blah. 1 second, and then they called that person, and then they came on the speaker. I'm like, hey, this is Joe from blah blah blah, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll come down. And I'm like, what the hell? It tripped me out. So that's not even AI. That's just programming and digital that replaced, because there was a front desk. It was a big front desk, and I had to talk to a speaker or a TV. So they replaced their receptionist with or at least their front desk person with, technology.
Cool story, but freaky is all the same.
So yeah, we're getting there.
So no, that was a great convo about WWDC. I kind of always just focus on the main keynote for day one, because like I said, Mac OS is that's where I live. That's my space that I work in the most. So that's where I tend to just focus at. But obviously, if there's anything that you all saw in WWDC, feel free to share it in the comments. It'd be great to have just a conversation about it. Obviously, as time goes on and we start getting more information about the different OS, especially Sequoia and iOS 18, we're going to obviously have more pods about it, because again, those are going to be big changes that are coming to the Apple ecosystem. And I just think they're going to have to release a lot of data on these, like a lot of talking points before they actually come, because there's going to be a lot of questions with this. So I think Apple will try their best to alleviate those fears and try to answer as many questions as they can. But I think we're going to have way more discussion around these OS releases than we've ever had with any Apple OS release.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really hope you all enjoyed this episode, this special talking about WWDC. We're definitely going to try to do more of these, especially when like Apple does big announcements, or other things that we tend to use heavily, like Sony products. Really hope you enjoyed this episode. This is different from our normal, regular programming that we normally do. So we really hope you all enjoyed this conversation. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add before we close it tonight, man?
No, I'm good. I'll leave the fear, the fear mongering alone.
Leave
for
everybody on the edge of their seat.
Yeah. Save for another day. Well, thanks again for watching, and catch us next time for our regularly scheduled program.
We really appreciate you all listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. You all have a great evening. We'll catch you later. Peace.